The God of the Bible supposedly had this power, and yet the God of the Bible is not a physical being. He's an immaterial spirit of some sort. And I think I'm going to ask James later to define the word spirit, because I've never heard anyone actually define that word in positive terms. So the God of the Bible is immaterial, and yet the God of the Bible works materially. Therefore, the God of the Bible does not exist. Finally, I just want to close with one quick, we have about 2 minutes here. There's only one verse I used to preach from the Bible. 1 John 5:7 said, there are three that bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost, and these three are one. I used to preach that. It's in this book here. Yet I recently learned that verse in the Bible, the only verse in the Bible that describes the Trinity in direct terms, is a fraud. It does not appear there. If you have a modern translation like the NIV, look it up. It's not there. The Bible was tampered with. The Bible is not a reliable document for truth. It has been tampered with. It has been mistranslated. It has been borrowed. It has been swapped. There are mistakes in it. And that you notice that James starts this whole program tonight by relying on the authority of the Bible. Of course, he was describing what Christians do believe. The Bible is not a good source of knowledge, and if you think there's a triune God in here, well, you're arguing for polytheism. And polytheism, of course, if you think monotheism is an improvement over polytheism, what's the next improvement? Have you thought of that? What's the next improvement, if it is an improvement? So even according to scholarship of the Bible itself, and I think James has to admit this, that verse that I just quoted to you, that I used to preach for years, does not exist in any Greek manuscript. It did exist in the Vulgate, but it's because the Roman Catholic Church put that in there. Since we have good reason to believe in, no good reason to believe in God, and since he's mutually contradictory, we can say with certainty that the God of the Bible does not exist. Thanks.
Thank you. We will now have our first cross-examination, and we'll begin with Dr. White.
Thank you very much. Dan, you just made reference to a very well-known textual variant in 1 John 5:7. You said you had just recently discovered that 1 John 5:7 was a textual variant. Is that correct?
Well, by recently, I mean in the last 10-some years, recently since I was a preacher, yeah.
Okay, and you indicated this means that the Bible has been tampered with. Is that correct?
The version of the Bible, especially the King James Bible, has been tampered with, yes.
Okay, so are you at all familiar then with how 1 John 5:7 came to be in the New Testament? Do you know anything about Desiderius Erasmus, any of the text?
Yeah, I know all that. I know that whole story. Erasmus was trying to publish the first Greek version of the Bible. He could not find a version of the Greek Bible that had that, and yet the Roman Catholic Church said that verse exists in the Vulgate. Right. And they produced what now has turned out to be a phony document. That he succumbed to the pressure, and he decided to go ahead and put that verse in there anyway. But all scholars now know, and look at any modern translation, they all agree that that verse is phony. It was wrong.
Well, there's no question from any textual scholar that I know of outside of King James only advocates about the Comma Johanneum. It's a well-known story. But you said they produced a manuscript. Who produced it?
The Roman Catholic Church, defending the Vulgate, came up with a handwritten copy of what they said was an original Greek manuscript, which Erasmus felt pressured to accept, although all scholars agree there is no ancient Greek manuscript that has that verse in it. So. Now,
the text that I cited, do they have the same textual problem that 1 John 5:7 has? And did I quote 1 John 5:7?
Remind me of the text that you quoted.
Romans 1 was one of the texts, and Colossians 1 was the other.
I'm not denying that you can argue indirectly for the Trinity in the Bible. I never said that. I'm just saying that the most common direct verse that we used to quote all the time, the only direct reference to the three-in-one, the triune, is that verse. There are other ways to argue for it. I'm not denying that you can't use the Bible to argue indirectly.
But you had said that I was citing from these texts, and you paralleled that with 1 John 5:7. Yet there isn't any textual parallel between the two.
I'm just showing that the Bible does have evidence of unreliability.
Okay, so the fact that we've recognized a later accretion means that it's unreliable. And
yes, there is some unreliability in the Bible.
Do you know of any ancient document that has as much ancient evidence for its transmission as the New Testament has?
For its transmission or for its truth?
It's transmission.
No, but I don't know of a lot that have worse either. The Bible has a lot of copies, many, many, many copies, but they're copies of copies of copies. Most of them come from the Middle Ages, basically.
Would you agree with Bart Ehrman, who I debated in January, that the New Testament is the single best attested and most ancient attested document of antiquity?
Maybe, but it's irrelevant. I mean, it doesn't attest to its truth. It just is transmission.
Okay. Very quickly, you just used your FANG argument, your free will argument for the non-existence of God. Is it not the case, Dan, that requires us to believe that God is in time and that God experiences a past, present, and future? And can you cite to me any modern Christian scholars who would say that that is the classical doctrine of the Christian doctrine of God, that he is bound by time?
Well, I know Augustine used to say that God was outside of time. He was one of the earliest. But there are many theologians who do think God is outside of time, but I think it's irrelevant to the argument, whether you're in time or out of time. If you're arguing that God is outside of time, what does to exist mean? To exist means to occupy space-time. That's what existence means. We measure something by space-time. And if God exists outside of time, then God does not exist. Putting him outside of time does not negate the FANG argument that he knows the future or not.
Okay. Now it's Mr. Barker's testing. Okay. Now it's Mr. Barker's turn.
Thanks, James. This is fun. You're one of the best, I have to say. You lost your hair from all that thinking, I think, is what it is. And maybe I'm halfway there. I'm halfway as smart as James. This new swine...
Gillette Mach 3.
Is that what it is?
Give it up, yeah.
You've heard that old joke that some people say atheism is a religion. If atheism is a religion, then baldness is a hair color, right?
It's on my driver's license, so you just proved my point.
There you go. This swine flu virus that's going around right now, that everybody's kind of scared of, did God intelligently design that virus?
God intelligently designed the mechanism that brought that virus into existence, yes. And I believe all things that happen in time are a part of his sovereign decree, yes.
And the mechanism that brought that virus into existence is evolution?
And natural selection. They're not the same thing.
Okay, so you do support evolution, at least. You're not.
I support the existence of natural selection. That's microevolution, not macroevolution.
So God designed the mechanism that brought the swine flu virus into existence?
Yes.
So God caused the swine flu virus?
God caused everything in time and space. That's why everything in time and space has a purpose. And that purpose can be